Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, September 15th. It is week 2 of the 2024 NFL season. This is episode 29 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. And today we are breaking down all of the week 2 action, getting you all you need to know for this upcoming Sunday. Today, we got a lot of games on slates, ton of 1 o'clock games today. Only 3, 4 o'clock games for those of you on the East Coast. And of course, close things out tonight with the Texans and Bears. Tomorrow night, you got Philly and Atlanta. So lots of great action this afternoon. Cowboys as well, rocking the Zeke jersey. DiMari, feeling good, 1-0. Cowboys, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. It does feel good to be 1-0. I know. I hate that we can't both feel that way on this Sunday, but it's a long season. It's a long season. But yeah, it definitely feels good to be 1-0. Looking forward to not only our game today, but all the 1 o'clock games today, even the 4 o'clocks. Like we do have a pretty decent slate, quite a few divisional games, quite a few teams we may see play each other in the playoffs. So I'm really excited to see kind of just what teams brings what this week, and I'm excited for the show as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a good week. And I was watching this morning on NFL Sunday Countdown. This week, I think the first time or the most time in NFL history or something like that, that 6 games are being played between 0-1 teams. So early on this season, a lot of pressure early on some of these 0-1 teams, a lot of games between both 0-1 teams where, you fall to 0-2, I think your playoff chances dropped. I think it was, I read a statistic earlier, it was down to like 11%. So early in the season, go through the first couple weeks. Once you fall to 0-2, 1-3, 1-4, season starts to slip away. So week 1's always kind of full of a lot of overreactions. You get full of excuses like, oh, it's only one game. But once you get into week 2, the excuses kind of go away. You got to start to win. You start to really get into the grind of the regular season. So I guess we could start with that. Some 1-0 teams that we feel are under pressure, 0-1 teams that we feel are under pressure. I guess we could start here with the 0-1 teams because that's, I think, probably the most interesting here from a pressure standpoint. Both got a couple teams we want to list. I guess if you wanted to start, what are a couple teams? We'll go AFC, NFC, depending on how many we got in each conference there. Some 0-1 teams that you view tons of pressure on them this week. And I'll be honest, I think the Jets are right up there on that list. But what are some teams that you feel have a lot of pressure on them?
So yeah, definitely. I will start with the AFC, and it is the Jets that I had up there. Kind of how we talked about off air. 49ers were going to be definitely a tough game, but under the circumstances with McCaffrey getting reported late in the it's like 2 hours before the game that he wasn't playing, and just to absolutely get torched by a backup running back is really uncalled for. I mean, the Jets look very promising. That first drive, well, the first few drives, you kind of see Garrett and Rodgers connection. You see Brees get going a little bit. So you think everything is good. Like this is what we waited basically almost a season and a half for, like including his offseason. This is what we waited for, and it all just kind of went downhill. So for the Jets, I mean, I think it's two things you can take away from that game. One, the positive is, hey, Alan Lazard kind of looked back to form, with his time in Green Bay with Rodgers. But the bad part of it is the defense needs some work, and Hassan Reddick is absolutely missed. Like Reddick needs to be back on that defensive line. But for the Jets, I mean, if you don't win today, and we're talking about Buffalo possibly looking better than we both thought, and we kind of just jokingly said if the Patriots are 2-0 going into Thursday's night matchup when they come up there to play the Jets, I mean, it's going to be time for some uncomfortable conversations if they lose today.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously the old saying goes, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And, a lot of people would be saying, oh, it's only 2 games. But, yeah, you can't lose today against Will Levis and the Titans, a team that blew a 17-0 lead last week to a Bears team that didn't throw for over 100 yards. And the way they lost the game, too, 17-0. It's not like the Bears rallied and played really well. No, it was just the Titans playing awful football. The Will Levis pick 6 was an awful, awful interception. Just a mistake that a guy in year number 2 should not be making, but he did make the mistake, and there he is on his knees watching the Bears defender go down the field. So I think for the Jets, you got to find a way to, of course, stop the run today. Last week, that 12-play, 70-yard drive where he connected with Garrett Wilson, They converted 4 third down conversions. Like that was vintage Rodgers. It felt like Rodgers to Devontae Adams that drive, except it was Rodgers to Wilson, of course, here in New York. Like that was just vintage what you want to see out of the Jets offense. But unfortunately, they weren't even on the field. They were on the field for 21 minutes and 40 seconds. They got dominated in time of possession because the defense couldn't stop a parked car. They could not stop Jordan Mason. So many third down situations the Jets found themselves in, having to stop 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, because they would pick up 6 to 8 on the first 2 plays of the drive. And then those 3rd and short situations as a defense, you put yourself in such a tough spot. So they got to win today. I mean, you want to be considered a playoff contender. You go down the line of positions, the Jets are pretty much better in almost every position than Tennessee. They are the better football team. They've got more talent. There's no reason they should not win today. The favorites on the road, take care of business, move on, go to New England, which we'll see what happens with them. But I still think I'm not fully buying into New England after a 1-0 start. But who knows? They did go on the road and beat Cincy. Even if Cincy's not the same, it's still an impressive win nonetheless. So any other teams, I guess, well, that's the only one in the AFC East. Unfortunately, that's 0-1. You got the Bills 2-0, of course, beating the Dolphins on Thursday night. Dolphins at 500, as we know. I'll go AFC North here. I'll say 2 teams really in the AFC North. I'm going to go Bengals, a lot of pressure on them. And I'm going to go the Browns. And maybe not just the Browns, the team. Like, I don't think Kevin Stefanski's got pressure on him. Like, I don't think if they lose and start off a slow start, like, I don't think he's getting fired. But Deshaun Watson, he's got, immense amount of pressure on him. He did nothing last week. Did nothing before he got hurt last year. He's done nothing as a Brown. I mean, that is looking like one of the worst trades, one of the worst contracts in NFL history. The fan base is turning on him. He looked awful last week. I mean, I think maybe not the Browns as a team, more so just Watson himself. The Bengals also have a lot of pressure. I mean, you lost at home to the New England Patriots. Now you go into Kansas City. That's a really tough spot. And you've got the Jamar Chase stuff as well, kind of looming over you, where he's making some dumb comments. The contract situation's not really working itself out. So what are your thoughts on those and any others maybe from the North?
I'm 100% with you. I mean, starting on the Browns case, try to give a little bit benefit of the doubt, kind of considering, it's like you played Dallas. Dallas's defense is under Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer has been known for great defenses, like during his time coaching. And for the Browns, you had both of your tackles out. Like, your tackles in play, you are missing some key pieces such as Nick Chubb. So you try to give the benefit of the doubt. But then you also look at it, we're like, you are a 2.5 point home favorite to lose by 2 possessions. You say 3 possessions, which is kind of ridiculous. And I understand that Watson is not looking the best, but you can't put it all on Watson. Don't get me wrong. I think Watson is not that great of a quarterback anymore, but you can't put all that on Watson. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, I don't know if he even showed up to the stadium last week. Amari Cooper dropped a touchdown. They couldn't get the run game going. Watson was pressured, I believe, 40 times. I seen on PFF. Yeah. 40 times for you to get pressured. Like, the man didn't have time to throw the ball. So I don't want to put it all on Watson, but they got some things to figure out, especially in this division. I mean, we already know what the Ravens are, and this is the Bengals case too before I transitioned over to the Bengals. We already know what the Ravens are. We all know the Steelers are probably going to win 8 to 9, maybe even 10 games strictly just off of defense performances. So there's really no time to slip up. But in that case, I mean, for a Cleveland team that did make the playoffs, I guess you say this is still kind of a moment of urgency, like they have to win. But let's talk about the Bengals. This is a team that was just in the Super Bowl a few years ago, and I actually have a Bengals fan that I work with who I'm tired of hearing this excuse of, oh, well, when Joe Burrow was healthy, we were in the Super Bowl. Oh, Joe Burrow hasn't been healthy ever since. Like, you never know if Joe Burrow's going to get hurt at home, if Joe Burrow's going to get hurt at practice, if he's going to slip and fall on the plane, like to the away games. Joe Burrow's going to find a way to get hurt. So we can continuously talk about the hypotheticals of Joe Burrow and, well, when he's healthy, this, and when he's that. They haven't done it. The Bengals haven't really done much outside of the Super Bowl run. I know they made the AFC Championship the year afterwards. But for Cincinnati, I mean, you haven't done anything. It's been this high ride for however long. All this hype going around this season just for you to lose to the Patriots at home. A team that was predicted to probably win 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, definitely. You're spot on. And I think we both kind of sort of saw this coming from Cincy. I debated potentially putting them winning the division with a healthy Burrow, but they looked awful. And I think the Bengals are a perfect, in my opinion. I've never been a huge fan of the saying like playing with house money. I've never been a huge fan of that because you truly never know what's happening the next year. Um, everyone's always like, "Oh, the Bengals." I remember the Bengals in that 2021 run. They got to the Super Bowl, of course. Beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Got to the Super Bowl, of course. Lost to the Rams, as we all know. Aaron Donald, all that stuff. But like then they got to the AFC title game, lost the year after. They haven't been back. The whole saying of house money, like the Bengals are gonna be so good for so long. T. Higgins is still dealing with an injury. You don't know what the future of Jamar Chase. You don't know what the future is with both of your receivers, if we're being honest. And you already lost Joe Mixon. So if we're being honest here, if the Bengals go 8-9 this year, let's just say, and I know it's only week 2, but they got the Chiefs today. I mean, that is a brutal, brutal game to be walking into when you lost to New England on the road or at home. But like, what does this Bengals team potentially look like next year? If we're like, what's the future? The future is, I think, been the worst it's been ever since the minute Burrow has been drafted. I think the outlook on the Bengals is probably the worst it's been. Because when Burrow got drafted, you also brought in Jamar Chase, of course. You still had Tyler Boyd at the time, T. Higgins, right? Joe Mixon, of course. You saw a lot of good things. You saw the future. Now it's, Boyd's gone, Mixon's gone. What's next? Higgins, who's probably out after this year, and Jamar Chase, who for some reason still thinks they're the team to beat in the AFC, but terrible, terrible situation right now for Cincy, especially if they can't get off to a good start. Now, I will say this. Do you think a change would be made? Let's just say they lose to Kansas City today, which probably is not surprising, right? But then they got Washington and Carolina. If they lose to one of those teams and they're 1-3, I mean, if they lose to Carolina or the Commanders at home, there's got to be something that happens, right?
Man,
I
that's
mean,
tough.
then you're
It's tough just considering. So T. Higgins not playing is obviously like a
yeah,
huge part.
yeah, it's definitely
So
definitely
trying to take into consideration like T. Higgins is not playing. You want to give a little bit of leeway, but then
Mhm.
again, Washington. Oh, if you lose to the Panthers, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's over.
There's no way. This Panthers team, like the Saints, were also we thought were going to be one of the worst teams in football.
Panthers are
To go hang up 47 on the Panthers last week is kind of crazy. But for
yeah,
Washington, I mean, in Washington's case, we see what they can be. Like we see a lot of potential out of Washington and out of Jaden Daniels. But if they lose one of them, let's say more specifically the Panthers, if they lose the Panthers game, there something's gonna have to change. I don't know if it's going. I highly doubt they bench Joe Burrow. So you know what they're going to do? They're going to point to the coaching staff.
yep,
There's going to be some things change with an offensive coordinator, maybe a defensive coordinator. Same could apply for Washington. I think there'd be a little more leniency because they are, I think, a lot more talented than Carolina. But I mean, there's after that stretch, there's no reason you're not 2-2.
yeah.
There's absolutely you should be 2-2 after those 4 games.
Yeah, and that's I guess the one good part for Cincy is their schedule's favorable early in the year. I mean, we thought New England would be a win, but they didn't. Now, if they lose to Kansas City, your next 4 games are Washington, Carolina, Ravens, Giants. You should realistically be 3-3, assuming you lose to Kansas City, you lose to Baltimore, but then you beat Washington, Carolina, and New York, of course. And then you get into a stretch. You got the Browns, Eagles, Ravens again, of course. That time on the road in the division. So it'll be interesting, but yeah, not a good look for the Bengals early. I will say this about the Panthers. The Panthers are like, and I know Northern Illinois upset Notre Dame, so there is a difference, but the Panthers are like the MAC conference or like the Sun Belt or some team that goes into, I don't know, Ohio State or last night, Tennessee beating Kent State 71-0. That's what they are. That's what they've turned into. I mean, NFL teams got to start paying the Carolina Panthers to come play for them or come play against them so they can go blow them out. And that is legitimately what Carolina is. It's a disaster. I feel bad. I really do. And I feel bad for Bryce Young. The ownership is awful. The fan base they're not, I mean, the fan base, they're not even trying to win. The talent on that team, they've got nobody. And I don't know. The owner, it starts with the owner. He's awful. I don't know how the NFL doesn't step in and do something about this. How they're literally like the Oakland A's of the NFL. But
I
it's
don't
bad.
know. The Panthers, I mean, what I can say, there is one team this year that they will play very tough, and that's going to be Dallas. I guarantee you later on in the year that will be
Possible.
a close game. But just briefly on them. I mean, it's like they have the names, but the names don't
Yeah.
mean anything. And I don't get it. And I know they drafted quite some guys. Like you drafted Jonathan Bruce. I know he's injured. He's out. You drafted Jatavion Sanders, who's supposed to be like this dual threat receiver tight end they got from Texas.
Yeah.
Xavier Leggett, I
Yeah.
don't know what he's been doing. Not his thing. Just I refuse to sit down and watch the Panthers. Every time I check last Sunday, it's NFL alert and it's another Saints touchdown for 50 plus yards.
Yeah. They made
So
Derek Carr look like. I mean, I thought Drew Brees came out of retirement, was playing quarterback for the Saints.
I really thought this was the Derek Carr. What was it, 2014 when he was with the Raiders and they could have made the Super Bowl when he broke his leg?
Yeah, and
I
then he
thought
got
that
hurt.
Derek Carr was yes.
Yeah.
I'm getting alerts like who is Raheed Shaheed and why like
Oh yeah.
what is going on? I
And
don't know.
Olave didn't even play that well. They they
He didn't.
they they did that without Olave. We talked about it all off season. What the heck are the Saints without Olave and Kamara as well? Without those two guys, they have nobodies. And yeah, Rashid Shaheed is it was crazy. And I'm not buying into the Saints hype. I just think it's the Panthers that bad. But
Yeah,
you make a good point. Like you got Deontay Johnson, he's solid. Adam Thielen, he's not the same player he once was, but he's still a good, reliable veteran receiver. They've got some pieces. They've got a solid defense. Like their defense is all right. They got Jadeveon Clowney. Shaq Thompson's been pretty good for them. He's been with them for a while. And I know he got hurt, only played 2 games last year, but they've got guys. I don't know. They stink. And Bryce Young, I mean, I don't know. It's the Panthers. Either way. Anyway, moving on. More 0-1 teams. Any other teams in the AFC that you believe under pressure 0-1 wise? I would say Jacksonville is a team that I certainly look for, especially the way they lost last week. I mean, blowing that lead to Miami and then seeing Miami play Thursday night, pretty bad look for the Jaguars. They're a team that's got to be able to bounce back. And really all year, the Jaguars, of course, can be under a microscope because of what happened last year down the stretch. But what are some other teams that you feel are under pressure as well? 0-1.
no longer AFC. I'm going to move over to the NFC, and I think it's going to have to be the Falcons. Ah
Yes.
man,
Kirk Cousins, especially. He looked bad.
I mean, I understand you're playing Pittsburgh, great defense, but I've seen a lot of that game where they were leaving TJ Watt on an absolute island to just have his way with whatever tackle was out there. But just for Atlanta, I mean, Kirk Cousins didn't look good. Defensively, they looked pretty good. I don't know if that was their defense is just that good with all the pieces that they acquired during the offseason, or that was just Justin Fields being Justin Fields. And Pittsburgh's offense has been terrible, even more now with Arthur Smith over there. So, not a surprise. Just offensively, I mean, they couldn't get going, and that whole entire offense was Bijan Robinson, who
Yep.
obviously didn't play that great of a game, but the whole offense was Bijan Robinson, and there was nothing around him contributing to like any success offensively. So I with the Falcons. This is a team that I was very high on, like all season. Now they had me looking like an idiot because they're already 0-1. And I'm like, hey, they might win 12, 13, 12, 11 games. So you see
Yeah.
the Falcons and I'm like high hopes, Kirk Cousins believer. And you go look at how good Tampa looked last week. And now I'm kind of just like, maybe I don't know ball. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm Stephen A. I'm just up here just talking. For
Yeah.
Atlanta, they got to figure it out. They got to figure it out.
Yeah, it's weird. It's got to be something in the water over there because they obviously haven't been very good recently. Now, like it feels like whoever goes to Atlanta right now is just done. Like they're washed. Like if you go to Atlanta, you're done. I mean, Kirk Cousins didn't look good, and you got to give him time. But I will say this. I mean, and I don't want to compare the two, and I don't want this to be turned into a Jets discussion. But I would say all the people were saying, oh, Rodgers is going to re-tear his Achilles. Rodgers is washed. Rodgers is old. Rodgers looks significantly better than Kirk Cousins.
100%.
Significantly better. So I just felt like, and I'm rooting for Kirk. I have nothing against Kirk, but I'm just saying I think it's funny that all these people in the NFL are like, oh, he's washed, he's 40s, he stinks, he's old. I mean, if you saw Kirk Cousins, I think you've got to be more concerned about him than you were Rodgers, who I didn't think played that bad, and he also barely had the football. So he barely had any opportunities to do anything because the defense, of course, was getting shredded. Either way, we already talked about that. I did like the fact, though, that they tried to get Bijan. Like, there was a clear game plan to get Bijan Robinson involved. Arthur Smith, for some reason, just didn't do that at all last year. So I like the fact that they made it a point to get him the ball. I mean, I think the first couple plays of the game, it was like the first 3 plays, I think Bijan had 3 carries. So I like that aspect, but Kirk wasn't good. And I mean, Kirk wasn't good. The receivers, Drake London, you'd like to see them get him more involved. I mean, Darnell Mooney, right? Get him more involved. Pitts, of course, had the touchdown, which was good to see, but got to utilize your weapons a little bit. They made it a point to get Bijan involved, but you got all these other guys. Like, they've got a lot of pieces. They've got talent. It's really up to Kirk now to find a way to get that done. And I don't know, on a scale, how worried are you about Kirk that maybe he's just like maybe? And again, it's only week 1. It's rust. And to be fair, Pittsburgh's a good defense. We know that. That's their identity. But
I would
what's the worry scale, you think?
I would probably say a 5. I'm just gonna be slapping in the middle because I mean you expected so much better
Yeah.
in week 1, but also yeah, you are playing Pittsburgh, and it does take quite some time to gel with this new team. Like honestly, we're not too neither one of us are too sure about how much Kirk probably actually practiced with these guys. We don't know
Yeah.
what the recovery period actually was for Kirk. So it could be one of those type of things, but at the same time for Atlanta, I mean, they didn't help Kurt, like you said, in any way, especially with the weapons outside of Pitts' touchdown. Nobody really did much. And Bijan, but also they had Kirk Cousins in pistol. Kirk Cousins has never ran pistol in his entire life. He didn't run it at Michigan State, from what I can remember. I think everything was under center. Same with Minnesota, under center shotgun. Like, why are we running pistol? So it's also like, how familiar is Kirk with this offensive system? So it's all going to take time. So I think 5 is pretty solid. Now, if they lose on Monday, that's a different discussion. But for right now, I don't think there's too much to worry about.
Yeah, Monday's a really big test. Monday's actually, I think, for Atlanta, I mean, it's a great opportunity because if you lose to Pittsburgh, tough loss, of course, but it's game 1, new offense, new quarterback. Now you get a whole another full week of practice under your belt. You get a week of film. You get another week of game planning. If they go into Philly and beat the Eagles, I mean, that would be a huge statement win and would completely erase away the stink from week 1. But look, they got tough matchups. I mean, they got Philly and then they got the Chiefs. So if they don't get their act together quickly here, you could be looking at an 0-3 start for a team that, myself included, both of us, we had them winning the division. 0-3 to win in the division, that would be a pretty tough hill to climb. So 0-1 done. Any 1-0 teams? What are some 1-0 teams you feel under pressure, for real, legit, all that good stuff?
Under pressure is going to be the jersey I got on. This is a team that is known to. I know the Saints looked pretty good last week.
Yeah.
It was the Panthers, but this is a team that is known to literally play down to its competition. If I'm correct, I think week 2 of last year it might have been week 2. Week 1, we go to New York, we beat the brakes off the Giants, and then you go into week 2, you go into Arizona, and you absolutely get killed on the ground. And fun fact, Arizona's offensive coordinator last year, is now the Saints' offensive coordinator. So obviously they're going to be looking to do the same thing as last year, which is run the ball down Dallas's throat. Now, the part of me that's not too concerned, you look at kind of the history thing. I mean, they have not lost a regular season home game in 2 years. 2022 is the last time. When Brady walked in there, they beat Dallas. I think Dak hurt his thumb that game. So that's the last time Dallas lost a regular season home game. And we're scoring 35 points in that stretch of home games. But on the other hand, the Saints always play us tough. Like, I can't remember a time where we completely blown the Saints out. I think you might have to go back to like 2012, 2008, something like that. So these games are always pretty close. We somehow seem to struggle with Derek Carr. He beat us last time with the Raiders on Thanksgiving. Walked into the building and dropped 33 on us. So for Dallas, I mean, you got all this hype, and a lot of the media, and I think the media does this on purpose, but they force feed this like Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. And then when you completely fall apart and you do have a bad game, now it's like, okay, let's all point fingers and laugh at Dallas. But you got to win today. You do not want to go into your next stretch of games where at 1-1, where you play Baltimore next week, and then I think you get the Giants, and after that, I think you get the 49ers, a bye week, the Lions, or that might be swapped. Like you have, I know their next 8 games, 6 of those teams were in the playoffs last year. So you want to go in there you want to leave today 2-0 and focus on that stretch of the next few games. Just don't overlook the Saints trying to prep for Baltimore. So they got to just get it done today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think they should. At home, the Saints, of course, beat up on Carolina. What does that really mean? Who knows? I guess we'll find out. But yeah, Cowboys are always under pressure. I totally agree. I will also say this. I think the Eagles, as a 1-0 team, have some pressure on them. And you go into this year, a lot of questions around Nick Sirianni, a lot of questions about just the offense, how it would look without Jason Kelsey, Hurts, like taking over that kind of bigger role now. But just more so how not even just that, it's more so just how the season ended last year and the defense, what the defense would look like. They, of course, took care of business against Green Bay, putting up 30-plus points. Now you get a chance at home against a team in Atlanta coming off of course, a tough loss, a game where Philly probably should win if they play like they did last week. It'll be interesting to see how – I know we just talked about Atlanta, but what kind of Atlanta do we get? What kind of Atlanta do we see? But, yeah, Philly all year is going to be a really interesting team because if they miss the playoffs, Sirianni's probably fired. Even if they make the playoffs and they lose in the wild card round, is this how far? That's something that I'm interested in seeing. How far does Philly need to go? What do they need to do for Sirianni to keep his job? Win the division, win a playoff game, or if you go 9-8 and squeak in and lose in the wild card round again, you get blown out. Is that enough? So I think they're a team specifically coaching wise that's going to be under a lot of pressure this year. I mean, those are really, if we're being honest, the only 2 relevant teams in that division. So I guess there's always pressure when you're fighting for a division title because the Giants and the Commanders, the battle of 3rd and 4th place today. It's week 2. Not good. I got Giants fans already telling me tanking. They're tanking. Tanking before week 2 even begins is wild.
I mean, with the way Daniel Jones looked, now I'm not even going to go much into depth about the Giants. With the way that Daniel Jones and the Hill offense looked, I mean, I absolutely understand. So, I mean, yesterday, Giants fans, if you did watch any football, your quarterback did get hurt. But on the bright side,
your next quarterback came in and played well.
Yes, your next quarterback after that came in and I think totaled 5 touchdowns. Yeah. One of those being a 67-yard rushing touchdown, which Daniel Jones would have tripped at the 2-yard line like he did in Philly. So, time to learn Arch Manning or another Manning. I didn't even piece that. Another Manning in New York. Yeah. Time to learn Ewers and Manning, bud. Just watch a lot of Texas.
Don't win for Quinn.
That is brilliant. Don't win for Quinn. I've been saying that all week.
That's gotta be the mindset if you're a Giants fan. I will say this: Week 10, and then we'll move on to some rookie receiver stuff. Week 10, Giants Panthers, Germany game in the morning. So feel free to sleep through your alarms that day.
I did see that, and I just with the quote of "What did Germany do to deserve this?"
Yeah,
that is going to be. Last season, I used to like 9:00 games. You're like, all right, these aren't too bad. Like you wake up,
got football all day,
literally all day. There's no desire. There's no burning passion. Not even for the love of the game. When I wake up and watch the game at 9:00.
Yeah, no, you'd have to. It's like that meme of that they're like lifting up the eyes like this. That's what it's gonna be for everybody. That's gonna be brutal. At least we get to wait though. It's still week 10. We're still ways away from having to deal with that. And who knows? By that point, I mean, what are we going to see? Drew Lock, Andy Dalton?
I mean, the way things are going, there's a great chance.
There's a chance. All right, moving on here. Rookie receivers. not doing a whole lot. I guess if that's the way you want to word it, don't want to be too harsh, but not doing a whole lot early here. Um, I know you wanted to discuss a couple. Obviously, Keon Coleman was the name I know you wanted to talk about, and some others. Just your thoughts on some of the rookie wideouts.
There was a lot of, and I know it's still early, but
Yeah.
I feel like there was a lot of hype around this wide receiver class this offseason going into the draft. And we're talking about this possibly being one of the greatest classes of wide receivers ever.
Mm-hmm.
And we absolutely just haven't seen it. I have not been impressed with the wide receivers. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just the expectations are too high, but like CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, when those guys kind of stepped in as rookies, you were just like, all right, they are pro ready. They are going to be absolute game changers and just completely take over this league one day. You don't see that with these receivers. And again, it's only been 2 weeks, but you just don't see it. And I don't know, it's kind of been hard to watch because I really like to see what the wide receivers do, especially when there's so much hype around them. But like Keon Coleman's case on Thursday, I know they didn't even have to throw the ball a lot because
Yeah.
they just took over that game. But Josh Allen, why is the guy that you drafted to possibly be not you as in Josh Allen, but your team, the guy that you drafted to possibly be your number one receiver doesn't have a catch, and I think probably 2 targets. Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison is supposed to be this generational wide receiver. What do you mean it's not your job to get him the ball? Like we're not. What the like?
When
What
he's
is that?
running wide open, you got to get him the ball.
What does like literally? What does that mean? That is not your job to get him the ball. Now, I mean, we're not telling you to force feed him targets. Like we're not saying 13, 14 targets a game, but you got to try to get him somewhat involved in the game. That's what he was drafted there to do. I don't know. I don't know if it's a quarterback thing. I don't know if it's the wide receiver thing. Are they not getting open? What it is? I don't know what it is, but the rookie wide receivers have not been impressive.
Yeah, I agree. Marvin Harrison in the Cardinals, that's interesting. I mean, he did have the one drop. I didn't think he looked great, but then he was running wide open, and it feels like Kyler didn't make much of an attempt to get it to him. I'll be honest, a lot of the Cardinals offense, just watching that game last week against Buffalo, it was just James Conner, James Conner, James Conner. I mean, I was not expecting them to use James Conner that much, especially with Marvin Harrison. I thought we would see that connection kind of get going, or at least make an attempt to try and get it going early on, to really build that number one wideout and quarterback connection. But they didn't really do that at all. So, and I will even say this, and I know Keon Coleman with the Bills, I feel like it's a little different than Arizona only because, I mean, Arizona, they were, of course, winning, blew the lead 17-3, of course, but Arizona late in that game was throwing. I mean, late in the game, of course, they had to go drive down. That was when Marvin Harrison was running open. But the Bills blowing them out, there wasn't many opportunities there for Keon Coleman, but I just think for Buffalo, I mean, you look at some of their other guys early on, they've relied on Khalil Shakir's been a really, really big piece for them early on this season as a guy that's gotten a lot of touches, a lot of looks his way. I would even say, I mean, even say Knox and Kincaid got a little bit more involved, but been a lot of it's been through James Cook in Buffalo. So it feels like they don't really have, it feels like their mindset really isn't a number one receiver. Like Keon Coleman's not going to get number one receiver looks. It's kind of just receiver by committee in a way, and run the
Yeah.
ball, set up the run, and then kind of just go from there. I will say who I was disappointed, I think most was Odunze. I mean, I think the Bears offense as a whole, I thought we'd see a lot more from Rome Odunze. I mean, one catch for 11 yards on 3 targets. I mean, you could say it was the quarterback. Some of it's the quarterback. I mean, Marvin Harrison, probably part of it's the quarterback. Bills, probably part of it's the offense, or with Keon Coleman. I mean, Malik Neighbors, I just feel bad for him, really. I mean, he didn't play bad, but what's Malik Neighbors' ceiling with Daniel Jones? I don't know.
He
I mean,
would,
he had 6 catches, I think 60-something yards or something along the lines like that.
yes, something along
I
there.
think him and
And
Garrett Wilson and him had very similar stat lines, I remember. I'll pull it up. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I mean, there's plays. Malik Neighbors reminds me a lot of Garrett Wilson his first 2 seasons. I mean, there was plays where Malik Neighbors was open. Daniel Jones just can't read a defense, can't find him. So I don't know. 5 catches,
I
66 yards last week for him.
I think Malik Neighbors. It just say 2 or 3 years from now, Malik Neighbors is an All Pro wide receiver anywhere besides New York and Carolina. Just he's not being used right, and I think
Yeah.
once he gets the right quarterback, Quinn Ewers, in the right system and all those type of things, he is going to be great. But just briefly too, what I'm trying to kind of think about, is it more of the wide receivers or is it Daniel Jones? Because even when Jalen Hyatt was
Yeah.
drafted over there, I mean, as good as Jalen Hyatt was in college, and hear me out, I'm gonna kind of contradict myself here. Jalen Hyatt wasn't that great in college, but he just had like a absolutely insane game against Bama where I think he got like 4 touchdowns, and that kind of put him on the map. And just after that, it was like a momentum type of high that he was riding. And don't get me wrong, like he's a great receiver. I wanted Dallas to draft him, but he's just not your number one option at this moment. But the Giants drafted him to be that. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
starting to think like, is it the receivers can't get open? Like, are the receivers just bad, or is it just Daniel Jones?
Yeah. It's interesting with the Giants. I'm glad you brought him up. He's a real interesting one. I thought Jalen Hyatt was a first round talent that they got, obviously, on day 2. Um, but in a way, his job's kind of been taken over by Darius Slayton. He barely played last week, and Darius Slayton's getting most of the reps there. And it feels like there's a little bit of a frustration from Hyatt. It seems like there's been a little bit of a disconnect between him and the coaching staff, from what I've heard here from the local media with the Giants. But it's interesting. I mean, he had a couple big plays last year, showed flashes. I think it's a mix. I mean, I think last week, from a coaching perspective, I think the Giants got out coached. There was a couple really stupid play calls. I mean, the one play that Daniel Jones threw the pick 6 on the screen. I mean, that was the most obvious screen that you could ever think of. That was so stupid. That's on Brian Dable. Then there's throws on Daniel Jones, of course. And then there's plays where you got receivers open. I don't know why they're not getting Hyde involved. I don't know. The Giants are just they're what, a 4-win team, 3-win team. I mean,
3, maybe 3.
maybe.
If this is how they looked against a Minnesota team that has
Yeah.
just been known to been terrible defensively,
Yeah.
and I didn't watch the Vikings game last week, so I could be wrong,
He
but
didn't miss much.
I know Jordan Addison was hurt, reported hurt. Did he miss any time in that game?
He got taken out, but he played. Believe he got taken out. And then obviously he's out this week.
Well, whatever amount of time with no Jordan Addison, no TJ Hawkinson's deal, and just Justin Jefferson, and to still lose that game how you lost it,
Sammy
the
Dimes.
Giants might only beat Carolina. Like,
They might. And even that is a reach. I mean,
yeah.
Carolina, I don't even know. Giants they're a disaster. They're not any good. They're a disaster. However, today they do face a team that Daniel Jones is 5-1 against in his career. So maybe that opens up the door for a potential Giants victory. But we'll see. Anyway, moving on. We kind of talked a little bit about the Bengals, I guess, here. So we could probably just kind of go over to Tua. Very scary on Thursday night with Tua getting obviously a concussion again. You know, I know there's a lot of people. It's a kind of a obviously sensitive topic. A lot of people debating on whether or not he should retire, whether or not he should keep playing. It seems like the reports show that he is going to keep playing. It seems like he's going to talk to the doctors and whenever they feel he should be back. But I mean, what is this? 4 concussions in 2 seasons, and the concussions are like major. I mean, you could clearly tell what happens on the field is pretty scary stuff. What are your thoughts on the whole Tua situation? Where do you think he goes? Where do you think he should go from here?
It's a tough tough topic for like a right answer, I guess.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like once he retires, he has a whole life ahead of him.
Yeah.
But for like people who play sports, like you love the sport so much that you don't want to just walk away from it.
Hmm.
Honestly, though, I would like to see Tua keep playing because he is like I don't even say exciting to watch. Just there's a point of me that there's a little part of me that likes to watch Tua and likes to watch what this Dolphins offense does. He's got to take care of himself. I mean,
Yeah.
the one it was uncalled for. It was a little uncalled for. Like you got the first down, you
It
drop
was.
the head, you
Yeah.
drop the shoulder, and you have a history of concussions. Like it was really uncalled for. And honestly, I don't want to sound insensitive, but I think if anybody else on that Dolphins team would have took that hit, they would not have gotten a concussion for it because from it like it wasn't that hard of a hit. It's just his history of concussions. It just wasn't too smart of a move
Yeah.
considering just everything that went on during that play. Like first down, give yourself up. The defender even kind of let up. Like Hamlin didn't even really try to
Yeah.
come in and lay a hard hit on him. I think for Tua, I mean, if he wants to keep playing and look like he is going to keep playing, I think at this rate you got to throw in a guardian cap and just hopefully that kind of takes away something or it helps a little bit. But throwing a guardian cap and just slide. That's really all you can say about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree. I mean, I think the guarding cap, they that is definitely something he's probably got to do. I wonder even if at some point with all these concussions, if doctors kind of mandate it for him to wear that guard to wear the guardian cap. But yeah, I agree. I mean, he's got to take care of his body more. We talk about this a lot with quarterbacks. I mean, heck, Josh Allen on the other side does not do a very good job of taking care of his body. He takes some major, major blows. He doesn't really know how to slide, or he doesn't know what sliding is. But yeah, I mean, watching that play, Tua he's already got the first down, right? You got room to your left, room to your life, or room to your left, room to your right. Um, Lowering your shoulder, lowering your head into Damar Hamlin's really chest, essentially, kind of his arm. I mean, he hit Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin didn't hit him,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's kind of the weird part of all this is like usually when if a quarterback runs into a defender, a lot of times it's the defender doing the damage. It's not the quarterback, but Tua essentially like hurt himself in a way on that play for not being smart. So he's got to be a lot smarter, no doubt. Um, but I don't know. I mean, he's probably going to keep playing, but you got to weigh, of course, the whole stuff on, he's got a whole life ahead of him. What is it worth it to keep playing football? Is it not? I mean, it seems like he'll stay play. He's still got that huge contract that'll kick next year. I mean, I'm sure he wants to try and play through that, earn that contract, but I don't know. It's interesting, and I mean, I don't know if you kind of start to wonder how long is he going to be out? Like, when do we see him again? Um, this all started too. I think it's bad management by the whole team because when he got hurt originally, the concussion, he had that concussion against what was it, Buffalo, and in the short week or whatever, he played the next week, and then that's
Yeah.
when he got the really bad concussion. Like that in itself just wasn't smart. So I don't know. A lot has gone into why this has been happening, but I think everybody said that he was probably one concussion away from maybe having to retire, and now he's in this situation. But you can't tell the guy what to do. I mean, he's going to make his own decision, whatever he feels is best for him, and whatever that is. Now, I will say, now you have Skylar Thompson for the time being. What are your thoughts on the Dolphins quarterback situation now moving forward for you know while Tua is out for whatever the foreseeable future, however long he's out? You pick up a Tannehill, he's still out there because, hey, guess what? And I want to say this, not to make light of the situation, but the Dolphins are a Skylar Thompson injury away from NFL fans having to watch Tim Boyle. So I'm just saying they are thin at that position. Do not let Tim Boyle.
I think regardless if it's Tim Boyle, if it's Skylar Thompson, they're cooked. I mean, they that's it. Like
That's
that's
one
literally
way to
it.
put it.
You they do have okay offensively. Like they have all the weapons. The Dolphins are a top heavy team, but their weapons are just some of the best amongst the league. But it doesn't matter if your quarterback can't get in the ball. And just I don't know, just I don't think Skylar Thompson can do it. Tim Boyle definitely can't do it. For the Dolphins, like you just said, you can try to get Tannehill. I've seen a few articles or some people like from the Dallas football side of things on Twitter talking about they trade for Trey Lance. That's
Oh
not
my
any
God.
better. that's not any. That's not any better. That's not.
Tim, he get I'd take Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle over Trey Lance.
There's literally no way. There's no way. I would call Cam Ward up to play on Sundays to come play with the Dolphins before I put Trey Lance out there and just go
What
back
would,
with no.
what would that package be? Like Trey Lance for like a bag of like warm gummy bears and Lay's potato chips
It's
or something?
it's been which I would obviously take that trade. I mean, it's a
Yeah, of
win-win. What they're trying to do is they're trying to poach Jalen Wright from Miami for Trey Lance and just swap, which I wouldn't mind that
Mhm.
whatsoever. But for Miami's term, like I said, Cam Ward plays in the same building. You might as well just
Yeah.
go ahead and suit him up on Sundays. It's no way.
Yeah.
Don't. It's no way.
Yeah, it's interesting with where Miami's at right now. I mean, I don't know. The whole Tannehill thing is interesting. Of course, he already played in Miami in the past. Obviously, a different era Miami team, but I mean, his last year in Tennessee was pretty ugly. I mean, he looked pretty
It was terrible.
washed. I mean, he had the 4 touchdowns, he had the 7 picks. He was pretty ugly last year. So, what Ryan Tannehill are you going to get? I mean, how much do you have left in the tank? Whatever it is, they can't play Tim Boyle. I will say this: I think if you're a Dolphins fan, you got to be regretting a little bit cutting Mike White. I mean,
Wow.
Mike White, I think right now is
Absolutely.
better than Skylar Thompson, better than Tim Boyle, but he's not on the team. That's a problem. I don't know what their fascination with Skylar Thompson. He's not.
It's
I don't
because
know.
he almost beat Buffalo in the
Yeah, I
playoffs
did.
years ago. But like that's
I don't know, man. I think there's so many quarterbacks out there. I would take Tannehill. I would take not Tim Boyle, but I would take Josh Dobbs. I mean, bring him in. So
yeah.
brutal. Anyway, any closing thoughts on the Tua situation before we get to our underdog picks?
Just they're another team that's kind of under pressure. I guess you can say you don't want to fall too behind in that division, and until Tua gets back, I mean they're going to be in for a long few games.
Yes, I agree. All right, underdog picks. This was a difficult week to pick, in my opinion. I think it probably was for you as well. I don't really know how this is going to go. Just want to confirm this week, or last week rather, we both went 1-2.
Yep.
I believe. So just want to make sure we had that correct. So week number 2, we are both 1-2. Underdog picks. Who wants to reveal theirs first? Because I don't know. I don't know how this is gonna go.
I will lead it off. I would like to say for last week. I mean, thank you for Dallas for saving us.
Yes.
I know I
Yeah.
had Carolina on mine, and that's just a way of life. That's just I don't know. Just briefly, like I know you heard me talk about it before, but I like the sports bet here and there. And that's just my way of things. It's like I pick a team out of confidence and they completely just play the worst career football they've ever played in their life. So
Yep.
thanks to the Panthers last week. And the Raiders didn't look too bad, but Gardner Minshew was a special character. But for this week, yeah, this week was pretty tough, but I'm gonna stay consistent. And I've been talking about the whole episode of just how this one team seems to play down to their competition. So I'm gonna go Saints +6. I feel like it's a 6 or a 6.5. It might have changed. I think it was +6 when I seen it. I think that game's gonna be a lot closer than we think. I mean, again, they always seem to play us pretty tough. It is the home opener, so are they gonna be able to quiet the hype around the home opener? Not overlook this team looking ahead to Baltimore next week. Saints +6, unfortunately. Oh goodness. Now I got the Bucks. I got the Bucks +7.5. I mean, they played a pretty close game. I think they lost by was it 8 last season.
Mm-hmm.
in the divisional against Detroit. But I don't know, this Bucks team, I really like Baker Mayfield. Like this emergence of Baker Mayfield these last few years, like I'm here for it. I love it. And I think they're just a very solid team with the pieces for Baker to be successful. Obviously, you can already argue that case with how far they went last year, but like outside of Evans, outside of Godwin, they don't really have much. I know Rashad
Yeah.
White's kind of a sleeper guy, but like I'm not too big on Rashad White as like a traditional running back. It seems like they really don't have too much going on around Baker, and he's making it work. Like he's doing more with less now than in Cleveland when he had more and really didn't do much. So props off to Baker, but I think they keep it close against Detroit, plus 7.5 for the Bucks, and then Atlanta. You already made me look stupid once. Don't make me look stupid twice. I'm gonna go plus 6 for the Falcons.
All right. So solid picks. I will be honest, I have 3 different picks. So this will get interesting. All right, I'm gonna go. I know he's not playing, but I'm gonna go Packers plus 3. I'll go Packers plus 3. I know Jordan Love's not playing. At home, no home opener. I think they'll be able to do enough, even with Malik Willis out there. I know the Colts and Richardson looked great last week, but I think Jaden Reed was amazing. I think if you could find a way to spread the ball out to your weapons, of course, get Josh Jacobs involved, try and get the offense to run, just try and set up the run early on. Last week, or Thursday night, it's been more than a week now, been struggling a little bit against with the run with Josh Jacobs. So I think if they could get Josh Jacobs going early on, Malik Willis just manage the game, get the ball to your playmakers, get it to Jaden Reed, get it to Christian Watson, get Romeo Doubs involved. Reed, of course, was great last week. Find a way to slow down Anthony Richardson, home opener. I'll go Packers plus 3. This next one's going to sound weird. These next 2 are going to sound really weird. I'm going to go Broncos plus 2.5. I know it's weird. I know it's strange because, well, Bo Nix, the Broncos didn't look great last week. Pittsburgh, of course, got the win. It is their home opener too. I don't know. I don't know. I have Fields. I don't love the Steelers still, even with the win last week. I'll take Denver. I think Bo Nix bounces back. I think the defense does enough. I thought the defense, early on they struggled, then they got better, and then the Seahawks, of course, put up some points late. But I think the defense is a good opportunity for them to play well. The Steelers are not a overpowering offense by any means. They're a team that runs through the defense. So I'll take the Broncos here. I'll take Bo Nix in his home debut plus 2.5 against a Pittsburgh team that is not very, very, very good. They're beatable. I think that's pretty clear. And then this final one's going to be wild, but I'm just doing it strictly because he's 5-1 against him in his career. I did it last week. I'm stupid for doing it. Giants plus 1.5. They're winning this week. I'm trashing on the Giants, but I'm going to take them plus 1.5. I like the plus 1.5, and I don't know. Washington Daniel Jones always finds success against Washington. He always does. He just, for some reason, he always has success against them. So I like their chances. Right. Give me Daniel Jones against the Commies this afternoon.
I don't want to rain on your parade. The Giants is not a great pick.
It's not a great pick. I picked them last week. It wasn't smart. Pick them again this week. It's not smart. I definitely won't pick them anymore. After this week, I won't pick them.
He has went 5-1.
Yes.
Against Washington. But under a Dan Quinn-led team, I don't think he's scored more than 13 points as a quarterback.
That's true. That is true.
Oh, breaking news. Okay. Oh, that's important. Falcons plus 6. Yes.
A.J. Brown out.
A.J. Brown is not playing on Monday. I am not rooting for his injury. But breaking news. But anywho, I mean, my Saints plus 6 might not be that great of a pick. They might get completely blown out the water today. So
they might.
Who knows? But that Falcons plus 6, I mean, that's looking a little more.
He's looking better.
That's looking a lot better.
Yes. All right. So those are underdog picks. I still can't believe the Giants back-to-back week plus 1.5. See what happens. My underdog picks are hinging on the Giants. That's not smart.
I'm convinced you're probably doing this on purpose. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong,
Try and
but I
jinx the
think it's
Giants.
just say let's jinx the Giants and let's just go be able to, you know, talk to the friends around like, hey, the Giants
I
really
see.
suck.
I would go. I would go. I would go Bengals if they played well last week. I would go Bengals plus 6.5 in KC, but no T Higgins. They lost to New England at home. No way am I doing that. So that
Well,
affected my decision.
the Bengals thing would be to lose last week, beat Kansas City this week,
That would be
go on a stretch of like 6 consecutive wins. I don't know. That seems like the Cincinnati thing. They always seem to do. They
yeah.
always the first few weeks of football, they look like they don't even deserve to be on the field
Yeah.
sometimes, and they just come out hot, scorching. So
100%.
we'll
Any
see.
closing thoughts?
50 minutes since the kickoff, so
Yep.
time to prep my mind. You guys have a 1:00 game today?
Yes.
All right, so we both got 50 minutes to let them do. I kind of hate 1:00 games because it's like if you win, it's like all right, well, like my mood is set for the rest of the day. Like great, but
Yeah.
if you lose, depending on how you lose, it's like I don't even want to watch football.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. It's you lose 1:00. 1:00 you win, you sit back the rest of the day, you relax. 1:00 you lose, you're angry. I'm nervous, man. Just beat the Titans. Just crush the Titans. There's no reason they should not win this game. So we'll see. All right. So that'll do it. We'll see you back here next week for week number 3. Enjoy all the week 2 action. And as always, thanks for watching.